Well, the amanuensis come just after your success with Gnosis, you know. Uh, what do you think make Gnosis work so well with the prog audience?
Well, I definitely know that, because it's interesting that I can remark on that because I, before I joined the band,
Yeah,
was a fan of the record Gnosis,
exactly.
and I personally, I'm a huge fan of Brown's writing. In this progressive whatever they want to call it nowadays, in this whole new movement of metal, there have been three main figureheads besides the forefathers. I'll call them. Obviously the forefathers are people like Six and Meshuggah
Yeah,
and even like to the likes of like Candiria. Like the people that laid the groundwork for this quote unquote genre.
yeah,
But the big guys in my head that I've known about for a long time, long before any of us were like not famous or whatever you want to call it, internet famous, whatever. It was always the guys. It was Misha, it was Ackle, and it was Brown. From Fell Silent, from Tesseract, and from Periphery.
yeah.
So like those three sounds were the real trendsetters, if you will. I use that word loosely, but like they were the real, they were the forefront of what would become this new movement. So Brown, when he wrote Gnosis and Monuments released Gnosis, it was just it was that sound, that pure sound that he has, that is completely his own, and it's just so authentic when he does it. That when you hear somebody else, that it's like, I don't say it's like imitation, but it's trying a little more. When Brown does it, it's just like, well, that just sounds like the real deal because it is the real deal. So Gnosis had that real deal sound to it. I mean, it was fucking grooving.
Yeah.
And then I guess the where it always is the dividing line is the vocals. Because before Gnosis, there was that EP We Are the Foundation where they had two singers. And so that last record, Gnosis, was the first record that they had one singer with the dude, Matt Rose. And
Yeah.
that was divided down the line, and there was really heavy production on the vocals for that record. But it was masked enough that people could, they could enjoy it and they could listen to it. And, I certainly did, and I listened to it. And, at least aesthetically,
Yeah.
technically, and it was not perfect, but if you put the record on, unless you were like really trying to pay attention to it, I guess you wouldn't notice those things. But aesthetically it was pleasing, and then on top of that, the writing was pretty badass, like with Brown's part and everything.
Great. Well, as you say, you're now in the band, being a fan
Yes.
before. So, what is the thing that most amazed you about joining Monuments and being with them now?
It's really cool to actually be in the band because it's the first time that I've kind of like been in a band that not only is like musically really inspiring,
Yeah.
because the tunes, they're like, it's not even metal to me, it's just kind of rock and roll.
Uh huh.
And it has that rock and roll vibe. And then like when we're on stage together, it just feels rock and roll. Fucking Swanee swinging his head around with the dreads. Like we're all kind of like headbanging, like feeling the groove. I look back, Mike's having a great time on the drums, and it feels like so solid and so together. And just like even on a bad day, it has this level of consistency that just feels good. And I like that, it's a feel-good thing, I even in band practice, I get that, what we call the funky blues face, like when the band starts playing, like if we're playing a tune like Atlas, one of the new ones, it's just like, it just feels good, man, and I think that's what it's really all about, it's not about like who's the best, it's not about who's better, it's not about like who can play the most notes, who's got the most hip shit going on, it's like, who makes me feel the most good on the inside, and I think we got that, I think we really got that.
Great. And the title of this new album is inspired by a novel by David Mitchell, Cloud Atlas. But I think
Correct.
the lyrics go in a different direction. So can you explain for
Very much so.
a bit more about this?
Sure. Okay, so I'll give you the whole version, kind of.
Right.
So the amanuensis comes, like you said, from the novel Cloud Atlas. It's a big movie that Brown was a fan of, and I'm a fan of, and the guys are a fan of. It draws from that character that is referred to as the amanuensis. And essentially, an amanuensis is someone is like a scribe for another person, where they dictate either what they've already written or what they're thinking or what they've spoken to them. So they're working at the behest of somebody else, and they're basically translating their thoughts, their feelings, whatever.
Yeah.
And so the title, the amanuensis, for the record, in my imagination, is actually referring to the listener who is listening to the record. And they're the dictator, at least experientially, like they're not literally writing the story down, but they're experiencing the story that is behind the record and behind the lyrics, that they're literally they're listening and experiencing at the behalf of the characters on the story. And so the lyrics themselves are based on this story that I've written, like I said. And so the story is that the inspiration comes from this thing that's been thrown around, the samsara cycle, which basically it's a Buddhist term to describe the cyclical nature of life.
Yeah.
And the concept for me is that rather than Google a whole bunch of cool things about it, or Wikipedia, some hit facts or whatever, or some cool terms, and just basically make a lyric book based around some cool stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something deeper. I've always been a fan of great storytelling, something that takes you to a place mentally, spiritually, physically, something that makes you sad, something that makes you happy, something that makes you love life, something that makes you feel the darkness inside of you, something that makes you question your reality. That kind of power is powerful to me. And so my approach to this record is that I wanted to do something lyrically that I've never done before, and I wanted to write a whole story. And it came as a result of actually writing the song Saga City. That lyrically spawned the rest of the record. And so the whole idea with samsara is that that word is used in the context of the record. It's used as a play on words. So samsara is actually the name of the characters, the main characters of the story.
Yeah.
Sam is your main guy. He's the main male character. He's like your classic hero guy. He's got to go through all these trials and tribulations, and he has to realize his destiny. And Sarah is his female counterpart, and kind of almost like his guardian angel. Like they're childhood friends. They grow up together. They love each other on a very deep level. They're like the yin and the yang of their universe. They balance each other out. And so the story itself entails Sam living in this fictitious city that I call Saga City. Yeah. And then each song is a chapter in the story. So Origin of Escape is he has to leave Saga City for reasons unknown, and then Atlas is when he crosses this great ocean, and Horcrux is when he has to give a piece of himself, and Garden of Sankara is when he has to go through this mythical garden in order to reach what is then the next song called The Alchemist, where he studies with him for years. And then he goes back home to, before he does that, he encounters the Quasimodo, who helps him get back to Saga City, which is Saga City, and then he gets back to this mythical place where he first found this book in Saga City, which leads him to encounter Jinn, which is a word synonymous with demon. So he encounters the demon, and he falls prey to the evil and the darkness of the demon, and he becomes the Destroyer, which is I the Destroyer. And then he destroys Saga City, but his life is bound to Saga City. So then he starts to die as the whole thing is being destroyed. And while he's dying and sort of phasing in and out of reality, Sarah comes back because we learned that Sarah has died at some point throughout the story. And Sarah comes back to reveal to him what he's actually supposed to become. That's why it's called Samsara, because it's the last song on the record, but then it cycles back to the first song on the record, which is technically the last chapter in the story. Sarah reveals to Sam that he's supposed to be the creator. So then if the story goes on and it starts the record with I the Creator, and then I the Creator is when he sacrifices himself to recreate Saga City and the universe around it because he had damaged everything so much. And in a last flash of his giving his life, he then awakens as a child, hearing the melody from the book that he then goes on to find in Saga City. And then that leads us to Origin of Escape again, which then is basically the whole record cycles on itself. So it's an infinite time loop that is always repeating, always cycling. And then the record also cycles on itself musically, because Samsara, the song, it ends with a bell that rings in the key of B flat.
Right.
And then the first song, I the Creator,
Mm-hmm.
starts with Brown coming in with a riff in the key of B flat. So then musically it cycles on itself. And so literally the album is a cycle that always repeats, and the only way to break the cycle is by stopping the record.
All right. Oh, that's cool. It seems
Thank
like
you.
the history is very detailed. Like it has
Yes.
a lot of details. You have 11 songs on this record.
hmm
Um, Sounding wise, was it hard to put the record together as the history seems to be?
Um, I wouldn't say hard. No, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Definitely challenging at times. I can't even begin to tell you the song Saga City.
Yeah.
I mean, that song was that it didn't almost make the record because we all couldn't agree on a form that the song should be, and I couldn't figure out a chorus for that song for the longest time. I wanted to fucking throw my computer across the room, and it was challenging. But no, it was good though. The thing about the record was is that unlike Gnosis, which had about like 2, maybe even 3 years worth of time to develop the record,
Yeah.
this record, the Amanuensis, we had about like 6 months,
Yeah.
like from writing to recording to completing, mastering to get it back to our label because we wanted to adhere to this timeline that was given to us by our label, Century Media, and by our management. And so that was a big challenge too. We're used to working with a little more room, I suppose, but we wanted to stick with it, and we wanted to capitalize on the momentum that we had built, rather than taking too much time to make the quote unquote perfect record. And God knows when that would have happened, because we would have been so focused. But it's one of those things. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It could have gone either way. I'm glad it went the way that it did. The record is not perfect at all. I'll definitely say that.
Yeah.
There's always going to be things that we as musicians wish we could have done, things production-wise we could have done. But for the short amount of time that we did have for this record, which was nothing by comparison to the previous effort,
Yeah.
I will say that I'm very proud of the work that we've done on everybody's part. Brown wrote some great fucking music. Ollie wrote some awesome choruses for the record. Mike Mallion was actually playing drums. Those are real drums that you're hearing on the record. Nothing fucking fake, nothing triggered. Fucking the bass, like Swami played some sick bass riffs on there. The vocals were very much in touch with what at least I had pretty much intended. Like I said, not perfect, but like it was the sound that I was going for. And I think the best way to say it is that it was all very honest in its approach, and it was all very honest when it was being written and performed. And so at the very least, it has that honest vibe that we kept. It's raw, it's fucking rock and roll, and it's in your face. And for that, I'm proud of it.
Great. Well, you mentioned the time before that. For example, with the previous album, they had like 3 years to do it in total, and with this was only 6 months. Was there any pressure to finish the album? Would you say that if you have one more year to complete it, it will be a totally different album, something like that?
Yeah, definitely there was pressure there. I mean, if we had like another year to do the record,
Yeah.
I don't think it would be like different in terms of in terms of like most of the content. Like for instance, the record would still stand as it is.
Yeah.
Because like you're getting the majority of the content, you know what I mean? So like if I'm being like the over analytical stickler musician that I am, we're running on like 85% there. But the thing that would change within that 1 year time period would be the little details.
Yeah.
And so like for instance, like maybe a different vocal take, or maybe a different guitar take, or maybe a different drum fill, like little details that would be fine tuned, especially in our ears. And then like maybe little compositional elements, like maybe little more additional instrumentation, like maybe some avant-garde type instruments like a sitar, or like maybe like a little like choir or something. Or like I had this envision for Garden of Sankara. I don't know if you're familiar with I'm forgetting the term. Well, like in Indian music, they have a way of like dictating rhythms and everything. It's like
Yeah.
da, tiki, tiki, da, tiki, tiki, da.
Exactly.
Like, man, I would have. Yeah, yeah. There's a part in the beginning of Garden Sankara that's open, but I always imagined like like a few different voices like doing like that kind of vocal scatting over the rhythm of the guitars and everything. It would have sounded so fucking sick, but we didn't have the time for that. So and then like also I think the other thing too that would have been that we would have probably definitely kicked it up a notch was just like overall production wise, like with the vocals and some of the instrumentation. I mean, it's definitely not, it's not fucked by any means, but it's also, it's just not like, it doesn't necessarily meet our perfectionist standards, which are pretty high fucking standards. So if we were working on those, we'd certainly be closer to achieving that. But like I said, it was a choice that we made to keep things moving, and
Yeah.
I don't really see it as much as sacrifice as it is just a decision that was made that worked either way. And within that short amount of period, like I said before, we still managed to accomplish some great stuff, and I'm still proud of it.
Oh, great. Do you imagine with the band releasing the amanuensis again, but with a different name and different arrangements? I mean, there is this band, this is Swedish band called Catatonia. They released an album, right, like a year ago, and a couple of months
Okay.
later, they released the same songs, but with different arrangements, right? Like, for example, if a song was electric, they released it acoustic with different keyboards, different parts, but the song itself, the structure was the same. Do you imagine doing the same with amanuensis?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, I mean that would be cool. Like almost like rearranging everything for
Exactly.
acoustic or different instrumentation. Yeah. You know what? I mean, if we had the time to do it, I'm sure that would be pretty sick. But it would come down to if we had the time.
Okay. Well, right now you have a tour scheduled with Protest the Hero in Europe, so
Correct.
that will be a sick tour. Which other band
Totally.
will you bring with you on that tour? Imagine it will be Monuments, Protest the Hero, which is the third band that you would love to have on that tour.
Oh, you mean like if it were up to me and if it were my
Yeah,
choice?
exactly.
Oh, oof, that's a hard one. I mean, we have a lot of friends out there, I want to be like everybody. I mean, oh god, I love the dudes in After the Burial. I love the dudes in Dead Letter Circus. I love the dudes in 12 Foot Ninja. Can we just bring all those guys along?
Okay, those guys are cool. They will be great on the tour.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's so hard to pick. We have a
Yeah.
few very good friends that we've been on the road with that it's very close to family feeling. We actually just had a gig not too long ago in Belgium, where it was Born of Osiris and After the Burial were co-headlining, and I mean I hadn't seen those dudes in like a year almost. When we were all on tour together, when it was Born of Osiris, After the Burial, Monuments, and I was singing for the Heart Machine at the time, which is how I got the gig in the first place because we all met each other there.
Yeah.
It was like a family reunion, like you see those familiar faces and you see those dudes that you just have so many experiences with that it's like, it just might as well be fucking second family, man. So it's so hard to choose just one person because it's like, I can't leave any of my brothers behind.
Yeah, I understand. And well, most of the people know about you because of Periphery, you know,
Yes,
and
they do.
now you are with Monument. Being in both bands, do you see both bands similar, or are there two total different entities? The way they work, on all the ethic or anything?
I mean, from my experience,
Yeah,
it's two completely different entities, man.
yeah,
I mean, Periphery was a long time ago,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but but I'm glad I'm glad I'm with Monuments. It's definitely something that feels more organic to me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how was the process? Did they approach you to join the band? Did you have second thoughts about being in Monument or?
You know, I would have thought after seeing Mike and Ollie having a drunken rumble in fucking Dublin where things got smashed, even those dudes are like, what the fuck are you doing joining our band? But you know, the truth is, well, I met them as a result of, like I said, I was filling in for vocals on the Heart Machine.
Yeah.
And I still do. I have a band back in New York and back in the States called Ever Forthright, and that's my main other band, so I do double duty. I was filling in with the Heart Machine, and I had also brought my guitar player from Ever Forthright to fill in for that tour. And so, like, we got to know each other on the road, you know, like Monuments and Africa and Buenos Aires. All of us were staying on the same tour bus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, it's close quarters for over a month. You know, you're going to get to know somebody, and you're either going to love them or fucking hate them. And thankfully, they liked me. And I like them, too. Even though they're fucking mental, they're a riot to be around. It's been great getting to know them. And so what happened was, basically, is that while we were on the road, you know, they were expressing some discontent with the singer. You know, things were not working out at all, and he was not providing the correct professional atmosphere, and certainly wasn't something that the guys were happy with. And you know, they had talked about, you know, like what was going to happen afterwards and everything. And I mean, I was like, well, I have my band back at home. You know, I have Ever Forthright, so like. I appreciate it, you know, like we had a good heart-to-heart, and it was just something that, in my mind, it just didn't seem like a realistic possibility, you know, and I'm from New York, they're in England, it was like, how the fuck are we going to make that work? So then that tour ended, and, like, you know, we just kind of parted as friends, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, you know, like, we'll see each other when we see each other. And so then I got back home and everything, and we stayed in touch. You know, they fired the singer. They fired Matt. He just was not cutting it at all.
Right.
So they fired him, and then they put up that song, The Indulger, which is now called I, the Creator.
Yeah.
But that song went online, you know, as for the auditions, you know, so everybody could audition for it. And I fucking just loved the song. You know, I downloaded it. I listened to it. And I was like, this is a good song.
Yeah.
I like this song. I'm gonna need to call them back and see what's up with that. So I hit up Mike and I was like, yeah. So what do you think about me doing an audition? You know, you still is that something that's gonna work? And they were like, definitely do it. And so then I did my audition version. You know, I did my version of Indulger just like everybody else. I sent it to them. They liked it, thankfully. And I mean, not only was it musically something that meshed and gelled in their ears, the fact that we had also been on the road together, that we could share a space together, that we could be in each other's business, you know, pretty much 24 hours a day for months at a time. I mean, that goes a long way in this business, man, because, like, I mean, somebody can be a sick musician, but if they're a fucking prick to be around, then, I mean, like, it's almost just as bad as being a shitty musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, that was a big thing that came into play. You know, we all got along. We all had the drive to do what we were wanting to do, and thankfully it just all kind of worked out because, like, musically it meshed, professionally it meshed, and then, I mean, now it just experientially messes. Like, we go on the road, and it like, when I integrated into the band, it was probably the fastest I've ever integrated into any band, just because it just felt natural. It felt normal. It was cool. I mean, I'm an American. They're all British, you know, so it's like, that was a little funny, and I've certainly, like, grown accustomed to their mannerisms and stuff, but, like, and I'm sure vice versa, and, like, it's either way, there's this great middle ground where there's this respect that we know that we're here to do what we're all here to do what we're here to do, and you know, there's no fucking confusion about it, and we're all on the same page musically, professionally, and personally.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know, for some years now, there is like, the progressive metal scene is becoming bigger and bigger in Europe. More people are following this kind of music genre as well. You know, you have festivals like Euroblast in Germany or TechFest in the UK, which is
Yeah.
right now are massive. So, do you think that there is a trend now to follow progressive metal?
I don't know if there's a trend, but I certainly hope so. You know, it's funny because like a lot of progressive metal tends to be sometimes like musicians' music. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's definitely music that is more for your intentive listener. You know, it's not stuff that you can kind of put on in the background and do whatever. Yeah, it requires a certain focus, which I appreciate as a music student. You know, like I took music lessons and everything growing up, and I went to music school and I went to music college, and like, you know, when I'm in New York, I go see the New York Philharmonic, and I go downtown to the Village Vanguard, and I go see the Village Vanguard Band, which is like some of the greatest musicians in the world. You know, so I appreciate good music, and I'm glad that at least now within the context of rock and roll, that there's a subgenre, I guess, if you want to call it, that like people will use their ears. You know? Now the only problem is that like any trends, though, there are people that follow the trend without really knowing what's going on. You know, so my thing is that, you know, as long as people are really educated and they take the time to educate themselves about music, and they take the time to understand what's happening musically, you know, that's where we're going to find something really special within this community, because the whole thing is that like we have a chance to actually take not only just like heavy metal and rock and roll, like that kind of sound and that kind of spirit, but actually like mix it with the musicianship of like a New York Philharmonic or the Village Vanguard Band or any world-renowned orchestra or jazz player or any world-renowned musician. You know, there's this middle ground there that is perfect for this marriage, and it's ripe for it, man. That if the young people, you know, because it's really up to them, it's really up to the younger generation, it's up to the younger listeners to know the bands, what they should be listening to, and then to go back even further to understand where the bands come from, who their influences were, who their influences were, and all the way back to the beginning of fucking time, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
If we as progressive metal musicians can provide a platform for the younger listener, for the younger generation to understand music on a deeper level, and that happens to grow and overtake, you know, like what is quote unquote pop music, you know, like in that sense, if it became a trend, then I'd be happy as a pig in shit. You know, like, yeah, it'd be a great day for the rock and roll world and for the music world, because man, there's a lot of specialness in what we do. You know, there's a lot of room for growth, and there's a lot of room for some really musical hip shit. The only problem with really good music is that it usually falls on deaf ears, because most people aren't used to listening to good music. Most people don't really care about listening to good music. Most people only care about being entertained.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, you know, and it sucks. But if we as musicians uphold this standard, you know, and hopefully people catch on to that, you know, hopefully we can influence a younger generation that becomes a huge generation. Like, I mean, that'd be great, you know. I mean, once upon a time, Frank Sinatra and Count Basie and Duke Ellington, you know, that was pop music. You know what I mean? Like, that was what was popular in the world. And now we have the likes of fucking Lil Wayne and Drake and pure and utter garbage as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But, you know, if, like I said, it all lies within the younger generation. It all lies within their brains, their ears, and their hearts. You know, like if they can embrace not only the spirit of rock and roll in terms of progressive metal, but embrace like the musical aspect and like really get into the whole music vibe, learn theory, learn about, you know, the founding fathers of music, not just rock and roll. Like, man, that would be great. That would be great for future generations. I do hope that happens, you know. If that becomes a trend, then that is a good fucking trend.
Let's hope that. Coming back to Amanuensis, you know, the cover artwork is just insane. Well, I was like, when I saw it for the first time, I was thinking about how many good flyers, posters, or merchandising you can do on that. You know, it's fucking cool.
Great shit, right?
So who is the artist?
His name is Fall McKenzie.
Right.
And he's a fucking brilliant artist. He did the artwork for Gnosis.
Yeah.
and he's a friend of the band. I actually just met him for the first time this trip that I'm in the UK right now, or in Europe. You know, I met him for the first time in this trip, and he's such a really cool dude. He's such a good guy. He's a real artist. You know, he has a vision, and I mean, I've worked with tons of artists in my life, but I've never worked with somebody that took my lyrics and took my story too. It's just such another level, man. Like, the dude literally, he captured every aspect of my story. Like, that whole wheel that you see, that's my story. That is my story. Those are what the lyrics are. That is what the story is. The dude nailed it, man. He took everything that I wrote and made a visual element to it. You know, he put it in terms that your eyes could understand. So he brought the words that I wrote to life, and I mean, I'm blown away by that. And to say that the dude fucking did a good job, it would be an understatement. The dude is supremely talented, and he has a gift. He has a real gift. And I think it speaks to him as an artist as well, because he doesn't normally do, like, you know, band work. Like, he doesn't work with a lot of people at all. In fact, like, he purposely tries to keep his stuff on the DL, I think, just because he's so passionate about what he does. You know, he only makes things that speak to him, I think, and, like, just something about monuments, I guess. And I'm very glad that he did, because, man, like, the dude took my shit and took it to the next level, man. Like, if there would be anybody in the world that I would trust with making like a graphic novel, or, like, you know, like, pictures accompanied with like the lyrics or something, like that would be the guy. So Paul McKenzie, whatever the name.
Good. Well, Chris, just to finish the interview, one last question. You know, when the press, the specialized press, tries to review an album, they try to give their vision about the album and the story, the lyrics, everything, you know. Sometimes they misunderstood everything. It happens a lot. But what is the thing that you want that people can get, or what people cannot miss about the amanuenses? Both press and fans. What is the thing that you don't want people to miss about this album?
Do not miss the story.
Yeah.
Do not miss the story. Do not miss the content behind the story. I mean, the story itself is direct. You know, it's in many ways just a classic hero tale. But that's the thing about classic hero tales. Classic hero tales are more than just a story about some fictitious character. Classic hero tales embody all the elements of humanity that we know we should be. You know, about the struggles that we go through on an everyday basis, the dreams that we have from when we're kids to when we're old, the things that we feel in our heart that we dare to do but are sometimes too afraid to do. But then you take that chance and you go down that road, and then you go down to this place that you've never seen before because you have taken that chance, because you believe in yourself. But then you also encounter darkness in your life, you know, things that will break your spirit, and life will beat you down to your knees and keep you there if you let it. But, you know, it's about overcoming those struggles. It's about finding the light within your own darkness. It's about finding the strength within yourself and the courage to confront everything that you've ever been afraid of, and to take everything head on and just become the best version of yourself possible. Because we're all the creators of our own lives. We're all the destroyers of our own lives, and we're all living a story right now, right here. And it's something that is not to be missed. And so, like the heroes that we all look up to, or don't look up to, I'm going to say look up to, because that's what I believe in. All the heroes that have affected us since we were children, whether it's Luke Skywalker or fucking Jesus or whatever you want to believe in, you know, whoever compels you to be the greatest person that you want to be in your life, that's what it's all about. And that's what the story is about. It's about becoming the greatest part of yourself. Because if we can do that in ourselves, then we can change the world, man. And that's what I want. I want the world to know that it can change and it can become the greatest version of itself.